into the dog days of late February, and 5 games left, and it's been a gauntlet. I mean, for everybody. Colorado State, I mean, they just went through a 4 or 5 game stretch there where they were on the road, and I mean, it just everybody's kind of feeling it. So you just gotta keep pushing ahead. I mean, there's no excuses. The teams that can find a way to continue to get better this time of year, the ones that'll kind of keep pushing forward, and that's kind of what, you know, our since the Air Force game, you know, yesterday in practice. I mean, had a good practice, and you know, really trying to focus on us, and knowing too that, you know, Colorado State presents a lot of challenges. I mean, especially from an offensive standpoint. You know, as good as anybody in terms of what they do, putting their players in the best positions possible to get them the matchups or shots that they want. And then, you know, defensively in terms of just doing some different things in terms of guarding the post. But, you know, you go back and you watch that game. I mean, it was just your classic heavyweight fight. I mean, it was just back and forth. And if you're just watching maybe the defensive clips, you're like, man, how do we win that game? And then you watch the offensive clips and you're like, okay, you know, it was just one of those. It was a great college game, and don't expect anything less come Wednesday. You know, as we make our way down to Moby, which should be an unbelievable environment. Hopefully maybe the cold weather will keep some of the Ram fans away. I'm used to -30 since I went to school in Gunnison, Colorado. So this is just another day in the park for me. So as long as there's no wind, I'm okay. And so hopefully we have a safe trip down, and looking forward to, you know, a great opportunity on Wednesday, and knowing too that after that, I mean, we got a lot of big games. Always the next game is the biggest game, and this just happens to be the Sheep.
Jeff, I couldn't hear Cody. I don't know if you could or not, but anyway.
I didn't. It looks like he's muted.
I think Colorado State's 21-2 against teams not named UNLV. Is there something the Rebels do to throw them off, or are they just a kryptonite matchup for them?
I mean, I think, you know, UNLV is, I mean, they're playing well. I mean, they're playing really well. And from a talent, athleticism standpoint, I mean, they have, most of their rosters, Big 12 transfers. And so, I mean, there's a reason why they're initially in the Big 12. I mean, with their size and athleticism, and some level of, they have to have some level of talent to be in that, you know, to be recruited at that level. And, you know, you add Hamilton in the mix, who's as a dynamic of a scorer and has been playing at a really high level. And it's, matchups. And then when you kind of catch teams, especially with this COVID and rescheduling, I mean, Colorado State that was a tough stretch they had. I mean, where they went from at Boise to at New Mexico to, you know, at UNLV. I mean, that's a tough stretch for anybody. I don't care who it is. And so, you know, there's probably some things that UNLV does that probably causes them problems, but also too, we're not UNLV. And so there's not, you know, there's a lot of things they can do that we can't do. And so we just got to focus and worry about us and figure out how we can find ways to kind of, you know, what UNLV did a good job of keeping them out of the paint. And I'm not sure we did a really good job of that last game. And so we got to do a better job of keeping them out of the paint, but that's easier said than done.
Hey, Jeff, they're, you know, 1-3 whenever David Roddy shoots under 45% from the field. You know, what's the biggest key to making him less efficient on the offensive end?
I mean, I just think it probably depends. Hopefully just he can catch him on a bad day, which he doesn't have very many bad days. And man, when he was here, the shots that he was making, I mean, he looked like an NBA guy, just the way his ball was going in. And, you know, he creates a lot of problems. I mean, he's kind of a cross between Maldo and Graham, and just with his strength, his size, his athleticism, his skill set. You know, they can put him in a lot of different situations, a lot like we do with Maldo and Graham. And so at a lot of times, I mean, you just got to try to force him off his spots and make him shoot it. You got to make him shoot contested shots. We gave up some threes, which kind of have to pick your poison. But as of right now, I mean, he's shooting the three almost at 50% over the last 5 games. But you just got to make sure that, he's shooting contested ones and from maybe a little bit deeper out, but he's a really good player, and really good players usually make shots. That's why they're good players.
You ever talk to Bo and ask him why he didn't finish off recruiting him for football and let him get to basketball?
What's that?
So do you ever talk to Bo and ask him about why he didn't finish off the recruiting effort of Roddy and let him sign a basketball scholarship instead?
Yeah, there's no question. But yeah, I mean, between him and Marcus Harris, I mean, they should have just promised him he could have been a quarterback. That's all he wanted to hear. They would have said,
well, that's what he recruited him as, a quarterback. He was the only Division I guy that did.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would have been nice if they would have been able to have gotten that done. But, I think Roddy probably made a right decision. It's a lot warmer come wintertime in the gym than it is on the football field, which my guess is too, at any point in time, if he wanted to decide to go be a football player, and especially an NFL football player, I mean, a lot like, Gates and, a lot of those tight ends. I mean, David Roddy could probably do whatever he kind of wants to. So if he wants to go in the NFL, he probably saved his body 3 or 4 years of poundage of college football and just go play in the NFL.
Hey, I got a question from Cody. Coach, you like to challenge your guys. Any specific challenges for your shooters this week heading into this game?
Yeah, I mean, I challenged him yesterday before practice. I mean, I told him that, those guys, I mean, they all want to be, they say they want to be pros. And I'm like, well, listen, I mean, last time I checked, if your role is to be a shooter when you're playing in the NBA or overseas, you're not going to be touching the ball very many times during the course of the game. I mean, and so the guys that are pros and not Joes, or guys that are sitting on their couch or playing in the rec league or in the YMCA, or guys that when they get the opportunity to make shots, they make shots. And my job is to put them in a position to get great shots, uncontested shots. And those are the shots that we've gotten. And they just, for whatever reason right now, they're not going in, but nobody's feeling sorry for them. I'm not feeling sorry for them. And, if they want to be who they say they want to be, well, you got to find ways to knock down those shots. And I get it. The ball's in the hands of Maldo and EK a lot, but, we're also 22-4, and those guys, we need them to step up. And sometimes you go through some stretches during the season where, Drake had this a little bit last year, was a little bit earlier on, where wasn't making shots, but, eventually he got out of that. Those guys are too good as shooters. And it's tough at times when you're maybe a little bit like a pinch hitter in baseball, where, you got to step in and you got to find a way to make a contribution. And, the reality of it is that also the other team dictates what your role is going to be as well. And I think the reason why we're in the position we're in is that we define roles. I'm not scared to talk about making and missing shots. I'm not afraid to tell guys, this is why we're putting you in the position we're in. You can like it or you don't like it, but you better accept your role. And that's the reason why we're 22-4, is that, yeah, would those guys like to do maybe a few more things with the ball, but at the same time too, I mean, we got to do what's best for the team and what gives us the best chance to win games. And so, luckily the way we're built, we don't have to survive. We don't have to make a bunch of threes to stay in games. I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that, we're an inside out team. And if we can start making a few more threes, then it just makes us that much harder to guard. But, it's not from those guys not putting the effort. I mean, those guys are in the gym, they're getting shots. We played some games on the road. Sometimes that happens for whatever reason. Air Force, I mean, we get open looks, and at their place, our place, I mean, Utah State had the same issue at their place, where you get a lot of open looks. Maybe you're too open, but, I'm not worried about those guys. I mean, they're really good shooters, and, they're going to step up and they're going to make shots in due time, I hope.
Jeff, I think we've talked a lot about Maldonado, the decision-making he's had this year and having the ball so much, but Graham Ike gets the ball so many times. It's really unique. Just how much pressure is there for a big guy to have the ball in his hands, 20 to 30 times? And are you pretty pleased with his decision-making, when to go, when to find the shooter, that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, you look at Jokic in the NBA, you look at how the modern game is. I mean, when you have I don't classify him just as a post player. I mean, I classify him as a really good player. And so my job as a coach is to make sure my really good player gets the ball as many times as possible and putting him in the best position possible to be successful. And that's where, with him, and, he averages almost 28 to 32 touches, whether that's in the post or off of dribble downs, whatever it might be. But he's a guy that, even if you watch the CSU game from last time, what he does is that, what you don't see is the hockey assist. I mean, that's where in college basketball, some of our guys might have gotten the assist off the next pass, but he was the one that created that because they had to double him, and, his ability to pass out of the double team. And when, his usage rate, which is number one in the country, probably the highest that, there's probably ever maybe have been in college basketball for a post player. I know the fact in the last since 2000, he has the highest usage rate of any post player that's ever played in college basketball. When he's in those many situations, along with Maldo, their turnovers are definitely going to be a little bit higher just because of the number of possessions are being used. But, those guys, I mean, I said what they can do in terms of putting the other team in a bind. I mean, guard them one-on-one, and both those guys that we've seen can go get 35, 40. Now you want to double both those guys, or they're good enough to, which there's not very many guys out there that are good enough to pick you apart with the pass. And that's where, that's the advantage that, we have. And so when you have really good players, and in my system, I'm going to really, those guys are going to get the ball, the ball is going to be in their hands a lot. I mean, I've had the number one player in the country at Northern Colorado twice in terms of isolation scoring. I mean, there's 4,500 Division I players. I've had the number one player in the country in terms of pick and roll at Northern Colorado. Last year, Marcus Williams, I think, was second or third in pick and roll usage. And this year, Graham's number one in the country. So, if you're a really good player and you want to play in space, come to Wyoming. If you're a really good player in the pick and roll, come to Wyoming. And if you're a really good post player, come to Wyoming, because you will be utilized.
Coach, got another question from Cody. How impressed have you been with Tanjay, and how important is it to make sure he doesn't hurt you off the bench?
Well, he's not coming off the bench anymore after our game. I mean, he's been starting. So, they got a bunch of guys like Tanji in terms of just, they've done a really good job. I mean, a lot like us, they recruit guys that can pass, handle, and shoot. And they got, a handful of guys. I mean, Tanji, Kendall Moore, Rivera, Jacobs, Thistlewoods, he's injured. And so, but they got a bunch of guys where if you don't guard them the right way, I mean, they can make you pay. And obviously last game, Tanji did he made some tough shots, and, that was also too, I mean, he's dealing with a knee injury as well. I mean, I think he has to have knee surgery after the season's over with his meniscus, but I mean, in terms of just, man, he made some tough shots, but that's why they're a good team, is that they got a lot of different pieces, and they just got good basketball players. And so it's hard to say, okay, hey, we're going to focus on this guy. And then lo and behold, you start focusing so much on Roddy and Stevens. And then those other 5 or 6 guys, they all end up getting, a few more points than what their average is. And that's when you really get in trouble.
Jeff, y'all played a couple of tough road tests throughout the year dating back to non-conference play. How big is that experience heading into a sellout on Wednesday?
Well, I mean, it definitely helps. I mean, I think, when you go into an environment like that, I mean, you just got to understand that you got to be able to control your emotions. Just understand it's going to be a 40-minute game. There's going to be 140 possessions, and you just got to take one possession at a time. And having played at Grand Canyon, having played at Arizona, even, the Pit, I mean, the Pit gets, it's amazing how loud that place gets. Utah State, I mean, the places we've played, and the fact that, we're a good team, and, usually people come out to watch, a good team play another good team. And we've been in a lot of those situations in league. And I think being in those situations will only help us. But, it's the reason why we play. And it's, our guys are looking forward to being in that environment, just like it was here when we played them.
Speaking of controlling emotions, a big topic this week nationally has been kind of the Michigan situation and the handshake line. How do you feel about that tradition, especially, this game, win or lose, is going to be an emotional finish, I'd imagine?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I've never, as competitive as I am, I mean, I've never understood why, coaches, when you go through handshake line, and why you can't just say good game. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I've seen it many a times where guys just walk by you and just give you the quick handshake. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not curing cancer. I mean, we're playing a game. And as I tell my guys, I mean, win or lose, I mean, you got to win with class and you got to lose with class. And it's amazing how many times you go through those lines and, you know, the other coach just quick shakes you, or, you know, a player doesn't shake your hand, which we've had that. And it just, you know, as I tell my guys, I mean, we coach our guys on that. I mean, they understand that win or lose, I mean, you win or lose with class, and it does. And it's not that hard to go shake somebody's hand, look them in the eye and say, you know what, good game. I mean, it's not that hard, but it's amazing how some of these dudes some of these coaches, they just blow right by you. Like, you know, they're the first to shake your hand. When they win, they'll say good game. You know, it's easy to say good game when you win, but I mean, it's really not that hard to say good game after a loss. And it's amazing how many guys, and it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, it's just, yeah, there's a lot of emotion involved, but at the same time, I mean, it's not that hard just to walk across and say good game and move on.